So at this time, I call the meeting to order, and we will start the Student Learning Wellbeing and Equity Committee meeting with item number 2, which is land acknowledgement, and this will be played electronically.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel des Mississaugas de la Première Nation de Credit.
Okay. Number 3 on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. There is an additional item for discussion, which will be item number 10, that is name of the committee. So, Trustee McDonald, can I ask you to move the agenda as amended?
Yes.
To include item number 10? Okay. Trustee Andrews, can you please second the motion?
Absolutely, I will.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Number 4 is declaration of conflict of interest. So is there any declaration or conflict of interest? Thank you. Seeing none, we move to the next item, which is approval of minutes. Item number 5.1 is approval of the minutes of the Instructional Programs and Curriculum Committee of January 15, 2020. I request Trustee Marchand to move the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald, will you please second the motion?
Absolutely.
Any questions or comments on the meetings, on the minutes of the previous meeting? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Item number 6 on the agenda is delegations. Item 6.1 is a request to delegate the committee by Rabbi Audrey Polak, Arlene Botnick, and Marla Stock regarding Jewish recognition days, months, and anti-Semitism. I now invite the delegates to speak, and I would like to remind the delegation that you have 10 minutes to make your presentation. So please be aware of the time. Please go ahead. Your time starts now.
Perfect. Well, I'm going to apologize for reading from my notes, but for 3 of us to be talking in 10 minutes, we have to be very organized. So I'd like to thank the committee for giving us the opportunity for speaking today. This brings us to the reason why we're here today. After numerous emails to the board, including Supervisor Rodriguez, Director Schwartz, on recognition days and after the month, outlining a number of incidences that my family has had with the Peel School Board, which I'm happy to share some of the details when we don't have time constrictions. The concerns did not seem to be taken seriously, and it didn't feel like anything was heard, with exception to Trustee McDonald, who was amazing. So my name is Marla Stock. I'm a parent of 4, former student in Peel. I'm a parent council member, volunteer, and member of the Jewish community. My parents fled their countries of birth due to discrimination and came to Canada for a better life. My father is a Holocaust survivor. We came to Mississauga 50 years ago when it was mostly farmland and there wasn't the robust city that it is today. To give you an example, in 1982, when I went to Streetsville Secondary, there were less than 10 non-white kids and 2 Jews. The community profile has changed a lot, but still there are very few Jews. I want to teach you 2 Hebrew phrases. The word tzedakah, many say is charity, but it's actually the obligation to do what is right. As well, tikkun olam, which is the mending of the world, which we need a lot of right now. And these concepts are ingrained in Jewish children from a very young age. Shortly after coming to Mississauga, my parents actively wanted to connect with the Jewish community and were founding members of Solel Congregation. Solel has always been very active in social justice, interfaith dialogue, and when members saw that families in Peel were falling short in feeding their own families, Solel and 2 other faith partners founded the first food bank in Mississauga, originally Food Path, and since 2009, it's known as the Mississauga Food Bank. Then soon after, they realized that this was just a Band-Aid for a bigger problem with affordable housing. Again, with partners, they founded another organization called Pathway Nonprofit Housing. They got funding for 2 buildings with breakfast programs, tutoring, lunch programs, and the region of Peel loves how they run manage their buildings, and they've actually allowed Pathway to actually manage some of the Peel housing buildings. You can see the Jewish community is a small group. It has significant impact on Peel. We want to be treated better. We don't want to be treated better than anyone else, but just deserve to be treated equally. Now, Arlene Botnick, the Director of Education for Solel, will speak.
Thank you, Marla, and thank you, trustees, for allowing us to speak. Following on what Marla has said, there are approximately 400,000 Jews in Canada. We are the 4th largest Jewish population in the world, but the Jewish population of the world is 15.2 million, obviously much smaller than almost any other religious group. And yet with that small population in Canada, we're 1% of the population, Jewish Canadians are still the single biggest victims of religiously motivated hate crimes, and that's from Statistics Canada 2019. Flyers are still being dropped off in mailboxes purporting unbelievably infurious anti-Semitic incidents, describing Jews in the most horrific terms. And what we've learned from history is this cannot be ignored. We are 1% of the Canadian population. In 1930s in Germany, we were 2, but that didn't help us in any way, shape, or form from being annihilated, and 6 million Jews were murdered during the Holocaust. So today, as our children suffer through incidents, as Marla could describe to you, we again want to be understood that our challenges are real. Our children feel frightened. There are issues with politics, especially with the land we refer to as Israel. But please remember that the Holocaust and the murder of 6 million Jews and anti-Semitism far predated what Israel has created in terms of political challenges for the Jewish people. So what I'm offering you is an opportunity to use the resources of our synagogue, our rabbi, myself, and any parents to walk into your schools and have children know who is a Jew. Jews are not all white. You can convert to Judaism. We welcome all people. And as Marla says, Tikkun Olam, mending the world is our guide. So I would hope that this is something you would use us for, invite us into our buildings as our Catholic schools and Islamic schools are visiting the synagogue. We are here to make sure Jews are understood, respected, because anti-Semitism is a real threat to our existence. And now our rabbi.
Good evening. It's good to be with all of you, and we appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I'm speaking on behalf of the congregation as the rabbi of the synagogue and also as a parent of students in the PDSB. I have also just completed a 4-year term as the chair of the Interfaith Council of Peel, and I have been serving on the Anti-Racism Policy Community Steering Committee, the report of which I knew was coming soon to the board. We do have concern over how students in PDSB have been supported in terms of anti-Semitism and discrimination. And I know that it's really important to lift up the different diversity within our community. In fact, that's one of the things that I love about living in Peel, is the fact that we have so much diversity and culture in our community. And part of doing that within the Peel board, I understand, is the purpose of our Heritage Months. The fact is very true, as Arlene said, we are a very small community, but there are many other small communities as well within the Peel board. And equity and inclusion means that all of those groups ought to be recognized equally. The sense of what Jewish identity is and understanding Jewish heritage and culture and history needs to be part of the diversity and inclusion equity education in the board, as well as Holocaust education. One of the things I think that is important to remember is that is not the only aspect of Jews and Judaism. We have a living, breathing community and a vibrant culture. So when we hear incidences of anti-Semitism and discrimination that are systemic challenges in our society, and about 40% of Jews in Canada try not to identify themselves publicly as Jewish because they have had lived experiences of discrimination and anti-Semitism. Being a small minority culture means in some ways that we need more support. The other thing that I think is very true is that when we see discrimination, when we see anti-Semitism, when we see racism within the Jewish community, it is unfortunately in many ways the canary in the coal mine for how other communities are treated. And our students and our staff particularly feel that they are not supported within PDSB. We have participated in some of the community consultations, and we very much want to see concrete steps towards equity and inclusion for the Jewish community and for all of the communities within the PDSB. So we are here tonight to offer our support and most of all, our willingness to participate and to bring some of that to PDSB. Having been in this position in the congregation, I have seen within my tenure here a number of anti-Semitic incidents that haven't been dealt with very well, and really has been a difficult challenge for parents and students in terms of how they were responded to. If we want to keep our community a place where people feel safe and affirmed, it's very, very important that they are listened to and that solutions are found to help students learn about the different heritages and communities, the Jewish community, all of the other diverse communities that are within Peel. And not only, I would say, within, putting up a poster that this is the month that's happening, but teaching about that and also within the curriculum. Our curriculum right now is very, very focused, I think, on, it isn't representative, I should say, of really who we are as Canadians, and that needs to change. And we are prepared to help in terms of education with staff and with students in the Peel Board. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation, Rabbi Polak, Arlene Botnick, and Marla Stoke. If trustees have any questions for the delegation, you are free to ask now.
Yeah, Chair Benjamin, would you mind if I ask a question?
Yeah, please go ahead, Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you, Rabbi Pollock, Arlene, and Marla for your presentation and bringing this challenging that you and your community are facing to our board. And I'll ask a question of Marla. You mentioned in your introduction that, the time is short and you're unable to really talk about some of the incidents that have happened that provided your community with hurt and harm, and from not just, people, but also our board. Could you elaborate on some of those examples for us?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've had the list is very long, unfortunately. I've had arguments with head secretaries about how many days how many days Rosh Hashanah is and things like that. The one that made me most uncomfortable, though, when I really felt that we were not equal, was I can't remember exactly. It was one of our 2-day holidays. It was either Rosh Hashanah or Passover, and there was a conflict in scheduling. The school was having some big meeting that my kids were supposed to attend, and so when I realized it was in a conflict, I called and I said, look, you're not supposed to schedule anything on a Jewish holiday. The head secretary once again would not let me talk to the administration. It's done. It's in the calendar. You cannot change this. And that was it. I was just shut down, and I had to tell my kid that they couldn't go to that meeting or whatever. Then I realized that it was also Eid. So I called back and I said, hey, by the way, do you also know that it's Eid? Immediately, I was put through to the vice principal, and that thing was changed. unfortunately was changed to the other night of our Jewish holiday, and we still weren't able to attend. But it just shows that I know we're small in numbers, and I know there's a much larger Muslim community, and things shouldn't be on Eid either, but it shouldn't have been ignored that my kids couldn't attend something that was at the school that they really wanted to attend. So it just, it shouldn't be one or the other. Like, I don't know, like I was just shut down. I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. So yeah. And thank you. I want to say again, Brad has been amazing. The board in general, there were emails that were going back and forth, and I really was not heard, but Brad has been amazing when it came to addressing our needs and helping us to be heard. So I want to recognize him also. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the trustees? Seeing none, I would like to thank you for your presentation today, and your delegation has been noted and the information will be provided to the staff. Thank you once again, Rabbi Polak, Arlene, and Marla, and we assure you that this item will be taken care of by our committee. We thank you once again, and you can now take leave of this committee this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, next item on the agenda is reports from officials and staff. So can I ask Trustee Andrews to please put this item on the floor?
Yes, I will.
AD De Silva, can I request you to invite the presenters to present the reports?
Sure. I'll turn it over, to be honest, Trustee Benjamin, over to my colleague, AD Aujla, to do the introductions as he's taking over this committee, and I don't want to overstep. But I am here to support.
Thank you. I did not see AD Aujla. Welcome, AD Aujla, and please take over.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Trustee Benjamin. Thank you, AD De Silva. Welcome. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you in this space today. I would like to now ask for the reports from officials and staff. If we could begin with Superintendent Hoppy, who will bring forward board report, report 6.1, Peel Virtual Secondary School update.
Thank you, AD Aujla, and through you, Chair Benjamin, it's my pleasure to present the Peel Virtual Secondary School PVSS report. I present this with great pride as the Peel Virtual Secondary School is set to launch in September of this coming school year, September 2022, and it will offer students options to engage in learning through the Ontario curriculum in a virtual space. And the students at Peel Virtual Secondary School will engage in innovative learning experiences that support the development of digital literacy and other important transferable skills to help them to succeed in the digital and ever-changing world. And learning the Ontario curriculum in the virtual space, facilitated by passionate professional educators, will encourage students to imagine, innovate, and be inspired. And so, as I had the pleasure of presenting to you earlier this school year to the board in terms of the desire to be able to move forward, we are now able to provide this update, which gives you some background in terms of some of the events that have taken place so far in the development of our inaugural school. Registration began for the school on February 24th, and it closed on May 16th. During that time, we were able to see a significant increase in the initial enrollment. When we had enrollment as of April 6th, there were 310 students, and that was the day that we used to determine our staffing projections. However, by May 16th, that number more than doubled and went up to 645 students who have now since registered in Peel Virtual Secondary School. And so what you see in the report is a breakdown of those students and by grade. So in grade 9, we have 160 students who have registered, grade 10, 138, grade 11, 137, and grade 12, including those who are also returning, we have a total of 212 students who have enrolled in the virtual school to date. One of the things that you will notice in the report is that there are some X's beside where we're looking at how we're going to be supporting some of our students through what program that we're referring to as the Abilities Resource Program, or ARP. This program is something that we're also very proud of because it provides an inclusive support for all types of learners within our school, within the Peel Virtual Secondary School, through our student review process. And this is being modeled off of a truly inclusive design approach to instruction and assessment, and allowing students to be able to experience the flexibility necessary so that way they can transition between whatever their particular goals may be between OSSD, the Ontario Secondary School Diploma, OSSC, the Ontario Secondary School Credit Certificate, or a Certificate of Completion as necessary. And this is something that we're very proud of because it does take a phenomenal amount of work and dedication on the part of the team to be able to facilitate this, but it's something that we are very proud of in terms of being able to offer those students this opportunity to be able to engage. So in terms of the students that are participating in this, we also have a number of students with whom, as part of that ARP process, and that will be participating in our ARP, our Abilities Resource Program. The total number of students who are identified is 98, 86 of whom are non-identified, which represents 15% and 13% respectively in terms of the overall students who are going to be supported through these particular areas. Based on these numbers, we have been able to start with initial staffing. We do have 8 positions that are based on the departments, different departments that are being rolled out initially. And then we also have a number of other staff that are coming into those positions for a total of 29 in total for this initial outlay of staffing for these numbers. And we've been able to hire 26 of the 29 thus far. And so we're still going through the hiring process and the staffing process to be able to complement the rest of the students that are going to be, to make sure that we have support for the rest of the students that are going to be joining us. In terms of next steps, we are going to continue to be preparing a variety of different courses that we are going to be offering and facilitating, again, innovative and collaborative and inclusive learning experience for students. We are looking forward to, and more information will be brought forward shortly in terms of a symposium. One of the key highlights that we want to be able to do is to not only make Peel Virtual Secondary School a destination for our own Peel students, but also make it an opportunity to be able to liaise with our post-secondary institutions and trades and in different industries in the community as well. And so this symposium that we're going to be hosting at the end of this month is an opportunity for different companies such as Brightspace, Microsoft to come together for us to learn from and for us to be able to partner with in a meaningful way to be able to provide meaningful opportunities for our students as they enter into the school and providing post-secondary destination opportunities. That is my report, and I'm happy to receive any questions at this time.
Are there any questions or comments from the trustees? I see some hand up, but I don't know who that is.
It's hi, Chair. It's Brad. I'd love to ask a question. Yeah, so being in the South, I have probably the 2 lowest enrolled high schools, Clarkson and Arundel. And when we look at enrollment for high schools, you know, when you're in the 600 or less, more around, you run into challenges of providing a proper programming. And so how is that going to be provided? Because programming, you know, you may, oh, I'm going to roll in here, but now you'll be able to, like my schools, find it, oh, I won't have this course offered and I can't do it. Or, oh, now you're going to have to go online. You know, I don't know how that works, but, you know, that's typically what happens. You'll have to take that course online when you're in person, kind of going to school. So how are you gonna? What are you gonna do for this? Because I think people may feel there's a fantasy that, oh, now online I can take any course, and it's no. I guess it's no. Anyway, you're gonna enlighten me on this.
Thank you for the question, Trustee McDonald. You are absolutely right that this is numbers of this nature are a challenge. But one of the things that we have a couple of things actually, I would say, to our advantage. The first one is that we did not promise to offer such a wide variety out the gate. We were very clear and intentional in terms of the courses that our students were going to be able to enroll in. And so there isn't the onus on there to be able to say that, oh, I thought I was going to be able to take this particular course versus not. So that is something that we've been very clear with out from the very beginning. And Principal Aurora, who's here, would be able to speak to that further. But that's one of the things that we've been very, very clear from the very beginning, that we're not going to be able to offer all of the courses that you may have experienced or if you would have experienced through the brick and mortar setting, or thought that you would have had if you were to go to a brick and mortar setting. That's not going to be the case in this instance. The other piece to this is that in terms of the nature of the courses that we're going to be offering, we are very intentional in terms of the courses that we're offering are being ones that we know we're going to be able to sustain. Those that are going to be able to, again, meet that vision of being able to allow the students to thrive in this online virtual environment in a manner that is not going to be, again, just a moving from the brick and mortar to the virtual. There's an intentionality that is here that allows for the students, and they will be experiencing this opportunity in a manner that is, again, different than what they may have experienced previously and or are coming to expect by virtue of the fact that there's a level of intentionality to deliver and design the course from the very beginning with this particular modality in mind. I will hand things over to Principal Roy to elaborate further in case I have missed any specific points to answering your question.
Thank you, Superintendent Hoppy and Trustee McDonald, for your question. Through you, Chair Benjamin, my apologies. I wanted to add, thank you, Superintendent Hoppy. That was an excellent description of our plan. I would just add that our goal is to land firmly but softly. And so, yes, we've been very transparent in what we will and will not be able to provide in phase 1, but we look forward to increasing options through phase 2 and beyond. So as an example, programs, regional choices programs, SHSM programs, we recognize that in the first phase that those would not be programs that we could offer fully. So we wait, we hold on that, and as we're able to build our staffing and build our program and build interest and trust in the community, we look forward to adding those programs in the future.
So, Chair, if I may ask a follow-up question?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So through you, the restricted focus, and I think that's the great way to, stick to a core and then build from that rather than offer, too many flavors of ice cream and nothing gets, eaten, as they say. So what are you focusing? Mostly academic courses and core courses that go on to, are we science kind of related, or are we social, or what is your core that you're focusing on?
So I'm happy to take that question, Superintendent Hoppy. Trustee McDonald, we are looking to offer all types of courses through our pathways. So with the exception of things like music or technology, however, other pathway courses across the program areas will be offered. So, within mathematics, within science, within social science, we will be offering all types of programs. So those that lead to college, those that lead to university, to workplace, to apprenticeship, all of those will be offered. Just those specialty programs that, will not necessarily be conducive to virtual space, like technology, when I say technology, construction and those types of courses will not be offered in phase 1.
If I may add, just that was always the intention, and we are meeting that intention in terms of making sure that all pathways are being honored. So that way students do not, again, depending on what is the best pathway for the student, they're not not coming into the school feeling as if there's not an opportunity for them to be able to see their future through their course selection.
Are there any other questions from our trustees? I have a question. This is regarding the total number of identified students. You say there are 98 students who are identified. So are these students with IEPs when you say identified?
Through you, Chair, that is correct. Yes, those are 98 students who have been identified. That is correct.
Okay, and so they would require special accommodations, so like for writing exams and so on. And so all these accommodations will be provided to these students.
That is correct. And that is the piece, and we're very proud of this. The manner in which we are going to be able to do so is through our Abilities Resource Program. And Principal Aurora and her team have been doing a phenomenal job meeting with each individual family to make sure that their needs are clearly captured and the supports that are going to be offered and the structures that are going to be put in place are going to be able to be met for these students.
I have one more question. In fact, I had a discussion with a member of a community who is very successfully running what you call it, a tutorial academy. And just while chatting, that person mentioned that first and foremost, parents need to be tech savvy when they have kids who are going into the virtual learning environment. So I hope most of our high school students' parents would be able to, help them in case they have some kind of problems connecting to the technology. And the second part is regarding writing during exams. He said that there is possibility that students can cheat during exams. And how are you going to make sure that there is no things are taken care of during exam time?
Principal Aurora, do you want to take this one?
Sure, thank you. Through you, Chair, we are very focused on program planning with our team, specifically with regards to exams. So part of our intention with this symposium that we're hosting is to invite our college and university partners to specifically address the concerns around exams or the topic of exams as being necessary and required in a virtual learning space. So while we understand it's important for students, especially our senior students in grade 11 and 12, to perhaps have the experience of writing exams, we're not entirely tied to the notion of exams being worth a significant percentage of their final 30% evaluation. So this is something that we're going to continue to work through with our community partners as well as our staff and develop fair and equitable assessment plans that honor those types of experiences, but are not necessarily tied at high stakes for the worth of an exam.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any more questions? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation.
Sorry, I had actually typed a question into the chat bar. I've got a lot of background noise here. Just given the significant increase in mental health concerns and conditions amongst adolescents during the switch to online learning that we've seen over the past 2.5 years of the pandemic, what is being done to support students who will be at home and won't be able to have the face-to-face monitoring and interactions? I've got significant concerns about the mental health and well-being of students who may be pushed online. That being said, I do acknowledge that there is some great supports. This program creates some great opportunities for a sub-select group of students who, because of social anxiety and other issues, may be better able to engage in school. I really worry about those who are pushing further away from social engagement and entrenching disenfranchisement through this. So what's going to be done to monitor those students and ensure they're getting the mental health supports they need?
Thank you, Trustee Marchand, and through you, Chair. I will start and then I will ask Principal Aurora to pick up. This is something that we're very, very aware of, and something that from the very beginning is something that we've sought in terms of looking at how we're going to be able to support. As part of our due diligence in establishing the school, I know as a team, Principal Aurora and her team, myself as well, have reached out to other jurisdictions in terms of other online virtual centers, and that's something that they have themselves have also echoed in terms of the need to make sure that we do have the necessary supports in place to ensure that the mental health of students in a virtual environment is something that we start with from the very beginning and is not designed as an afterthought. So with that in mind, there's again, the word I'm going to be focusing on is that there's an intentionality here where we recognize that there is going to be a space for students to be able to access supports as necessary in order for them to receive the support that they may need to given whatever challenge may present itself over the course of their time within the school, both during the day and outside of the school day as part of a larger Peel Virtual Secondary School community. And as part of a new school, just like all of our other structures, we have based on our enrollment, based on our numbers, and based on the need, put forth the need for dedicated supports in terms of our allocation. And so there are going to be those who will be assigned to our Peel Virtual Secondary School to be able to provide those supports. But we're also making sure that as part of our onboarding of our newest staff, if you will, that they understand that they need to keep an eye out for this as well. And that's something that's going to be stressed with them as they come on board so that they have a keen eye to be able to provide those supports for students in the moment when they need them, as opposed to having to say that they now need to go elsewhere to be able to receive as such. And I'll let Principal Aurora to speak and elaborate further.
Thank you, Superintendent Hoppy, and through you, Chair. What I would add is that we also have framed our program delivery on something that we're calling the I-cubed time. And what this means is that our goal and our focus is to be able to be flexible in the 75 minutes of instructional time to provide space for students to engage in other types of activities, such as wellness activities and asynchronous activities, because we too are aware, as Superintendent Hoppy has described, of the significant concerns around mental well-being. And so that's one example of the way in which we are going to look to ensure that students are engaged in wellness activities throughout their instructional day. Thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions? Any more
Yeah,
questions?
Thank you. If I can add a follow-up to that, then you mentioned that teachers are going and educators are going to be asked to look and observe for signs of concern. Is there any formalized training for these online educators in what they should be looking for? How is that training going to be put forward? What is the cost of that training, and when will it be starting?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Marchand, and through you, Chair. So we are in development of all of those elements. And so we are working in consult with our other educational partners, specifically within the social emotional learning well-being facet of the board, that section of the board, in terms of making sure that they too understand our unique needs and are providing us with the tools in co-development of what it is that the staff will need to look for. This is something that, again, we are building on past practice and the knowledge that's already been accumulated through the pandemic and the lessons that have been learned, and tailoring that in a manner that is going to allow us to be able to proceed in a manner that will give them the specific training that they've had. On a larger scale, not just unique to Peel Virtual Secondary School, there are resources that staff already do have available to them, so that way they are becoming more aware and attuned to what it is that the different ways in terms of how things can manifest. And as we move throughout the year, we will provide greater opportunities to be able to provide those educational supports through the current structures that we have. So through department meetings, staff meetings, things of that nature, those opportunities will present themselves and will be the means by which we'll be able to continue to provide that learning. So sorry, it's already started, and we are continuing and looking to continue to build as we move into the new year. My apologies, I realized I didn't speak to that particular in terms of the timing.
Yeah, no, thank you. If I may, one more follow-up, Chair.
Go ahead,
sorry.
please.
Yeah. Yeah, just knowing how difficult it can be to recognize signs of self-harm, substance abuse, and abuse at home, even for in-class learning and for kids who have absenteeism issues, or but even when the child's in your classroom, it can be very hard to recognize some of these signs and symptoms of those mentioned problems. Have we done any jurisdictional scans or research of available learning tools, supports, research that supports that we can actually protect these students who are particularly vulnerable, yet we're obligated to help, who may be further victimized or further self-harm by creating by creating an option for them to be only educated online. Are we doing any kind of mental health screening or in-person screening to rule out students who are not appropriate or who may be further harmed or victimized by allowing them to engage in education on this route?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Marchand, and through you, Chair. In terms of screening, no, we are not screening any of the students. This was an opportunity that families and students had as a choice for them to be able to participate in becoming a member of the school. There is no screen, just like all of our other public schools that we have within our system, we do not screen students to be able to say whether or not you are able to attend one school versus the other. So similarly here, despite the shift in modality to a virtual one, no, we do not screen our students. In terms of being able to provide supports, you are absolutely right that it is challenging at the best of times, and teachers are not clinicians. They are not social workers that are going to necessarily be able to be attuned to every single aspect that somebody of that profession would be able to. Nonetheless, we are going to be, and we've already started in terms of having opportunities for educators to become better and deeper aware of the different ways in which that may present itself and the way that it may manifest. And it is ongoing. It is not something that is ever going to be static to say, I now know all in terms of the different ways that the child may present. It is going to be an ongoing conversation, but it is something to which we are going to be through as we bring staff on, and Principal Aurora works with her team to make sure that staff are aware that this unique manner in which we are delivering education is one that the teachers are going to have to look at things differently, and that they're going to have to engage students in this manner that is going to allow them to be able to look for things that they may not have necessarily paid attention to previously. But one of the key pieces to this in terms of mitigating the harm is that, again, this is by choice. Where the pandemic was one in which it was a response in which we were forced into that and caused a lot of harm because students did not want to be in that particular mode of learning, this is one that is 100% by choice. We did not remove other options from students. We provided this option for them. And so that will help mitigate in terms of some of the concerns that were presented through the pandemic when students were finding themselves learning in an environment that they did not wish to necessarily be in.
I'll ask AD De Silva first, and Trustee Andrews, you go next.
Great, thank you, Chair Benjamin, and thank you, Superintendent Hoppy, for all of that information. And thank you, Trustee Marchand, for the very important question. At the end of the day, the pandemic has had significant impact on the mental health of students, staff, community, parents. There is no doubt. And so we are in the throes of trying to build a more connected and aligned strategic plan around mental health that will connect staff and students greater than what is currently available to us. And so our hope is that as we build this out, it would be comprehensive, not only looking at students who are accessing online learning, but also in-person learning. And you are absolutely right, everyone here. It is difficult to diagnose, if you will, or to figure out, or to see all the signs, but we are making inroads. I would connect us to the work that we are doing around anti-human trafficking and understanding to look for those hidden signs from students that would trigger action on the part of staff, students, and our social worker, clinicians, and so on. But Trustee Marchand, this is something that we're all living with, and I would say that it will be a major focus moving forward into 2022, 2023. And we're hoping to make significant connections in alignment to our what we would call previously our school success planning, but also our SEEP and our BEEP process, and making those connections to mental health.
Trustee Andrews, your turn.
Thank you through you, Chair. So just kind of a follow-up to Trustee Marchand's question, around the training, for staff and to be able to visually see any concerns, in the virtual classroom around students. Do we have a position on whether cameras, is it mandatory that cameras be on during school? Or are there guidelines as to, I'm not feeling well today as a student, is it okay if I don't have my camera on? Because I think there would be a bit of a flag raised if a student is continually joining class virtually and their camera is never on. So is there a process to kind of reach out, or just trying to understand the whole camera on off position?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Andrews. I will let Principal Aurora take this one.
I see she's smiling, so I know she has an answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Trustee Andrews, for your question through you, Chair. So the answer is a little complicated because we are not we don't have the position of mandating that students keep their cameras on. Having said that, we are working with our staff to ensure that the language that we're using is that we know that when cameras are on, there is a higher level of engagement and a higher level of interest in the programming. And so, because we have this privilege of hiring staff and developing that team, we're hoping to build that sense of community, and therefore students would have, would be wanting to keep their cameras on. Having said that, we're also practical and being realistic that there will be times, as you mentioned, when a student may not choose to have their camera on or choose to have it on, and then later for extended period of times it's off. And that's when we will be reaching out to families to follow up to ensure that there are no concerns, as we would in a regular classroom. So at this point in time, we are of the mind that we would not be mandating that cameras be on. However, staff would have their cameras on and would be looking to inspire and engage students in their innovative learning experiences through our school.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome. Any more questions from our trustees? Seeing none, I'd like to thank Superintendent Hoppy and Principal Anu Arora for all the clarifications that you have made. And the report is here for receipt. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Item 7.2 on the agenda is the Peel Elementary Virtual School Report. AD Ojla, I think you are the one who's going to present the report.
Thank you so much, Chair Benjamin. So I will introduce Superintendent Bernadette Smith, who will speak to the Peel Elementary Virtual Schools update. Thank you.
Before go on to that, I think I missed one step in the script. Excuse me, this is my first chairing of any committee after a long, long time. Trustee Andrews, can you please put the item on the floor? Trustee McDonald.
Yes, I will. Sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
Yes, I will put it on the floor, and Trustee Benjamin, or Chair Benjamin, you are doing a great job.
Oh, thank you. Trustee McDonald, could you please second the motion? I think he agrees.
We're good. We're good.
Thank you. Superintendent Smith, please go ahead and make your presentation.
Thank you so much. And thank you, AD Ajla, and through you, Chair Benjamin, I am pleased to provide you with an update related to the Peel Elementary Virtual School, called affectionately Peel EVS. So we're in the process of establishing the Peel Elementary Virtual School, the EVS, as a response to the Ontario government's direction to school boards with regards to a COVID response right now for the 2022-2023 school year. The EVS will offer students opportunities to engage in many different learning opportunities outlined in the kindergarten to grade 8 Ontario curriculum in a virtual space through progressive, innovative learning experiences facilitated by dedicated, committed educators that we're in the process of hiring right now. And we're thrilled to see the huge response that has come forward to teach in the EVS. We hope to foster transferable skills, including critical thinking and creativity, while developing digital fluency. We recently hired the principal for the EVS, who's here, Sumita Merwar, who's doing a fabulous job with her 2 vice principals, which we've also recently hired, Elliot Thompson and Jason Chenier. We appointed these wonderful administrators to the team, and they are diligently in the process of staffing the EVS right now and setting up all the infrastructure to ensure its success. So the 2022-23 Peel Elementary Virtual School will be a 1-year offering to grade K-8 students. And currently the registration is at 2,070 students. So it's big. This represents 1.5% of the Peel District School Board student population. The enrollment is pretty much spread out according to junior kindergarten all the way to grade 8. So we have over 200 in the junior kindergarten, as well as over 200 in grade 8. In other words, and of the total number of students registered in EVS, 254 students will be supported by an in-school support teacher or an ISSP teacher in order to ensure that their accommodations and modifications as per their individual education plan are met. And we're working diligently in partnership with the special education department to ensure that all services will be provided for students with special education needs. Transition meetings for 180 students in this category are scheduled for June 12th, 13, and 14. IPRC and also transition meetings for 74 students will be scheduled June 20th, 21st, and 22nd in order to ensure that we have all necessary information for programming for these students before the end of the school year. To date, we have staffed EVS with 40 out of the 87 classroom teachers, and we are continuing to do so right now. Sumita, in fact, has just stepped away from interviewing teachers at the moment. And we are also hiring for the prep time teachers, ESL, English as a Second Language teacher, planning time for staff, guidance, librarian, office manager, and office assistant. The school will run according to a traditional school year calendar, and it also will be a 5-day schedule with 7 40-minute periods. And the literacy blocks per grade level will be timetabled for support of the students who require special education support, as well as English as a Second Language support. So the day schedule will be from 8:20 to 2:40 with 2 nutrition breaks, each for 40 minutes. And we figure that that will be enough time for students to have a good time to stretch. And we are really considering that learning environment within the virtual platform and ensuring that students have a lot of movement, small group instruction, as well to attend to their mental health and wellness needs. So kindergarten Right to Read will operate as well with speech and language consultation and literacy planning time. Our next steps is that we are right now setting up an EVS learning symposium for all of our staff in partnership with Apple, Microsoft, Brightspace, our Empowering Modern Learning team, and other cross-departmental staff. We're going to be focusing on the 6 elements of innovation: learning culture, equitable assessment, access to technology and tools, global competencies, learning environment, and models of learning. And all of this as it applies to a virtual learning environment. So we're being extremely intentional in the type of training and services that we will be providing in the elementary virtual school. As well, we're going to be planning a virtual parent information session in order for parents to be able to receive a lot of information about the school. And for us, we only started this process in March. And so it's been a shorter runway. However, we are getting all of the pieces together in order to ensure that we're set to go by September. And there will be some work over the summer as well in order to ensure parent information is set up for parents to be able to access how to access technology and different tutorials for them to ensure that they have success with this. So we are very pleased with the progress that we're making at this point. And I'm happy to take any questions at this time, and Sumita is here as well to support.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the trustees? I can see Trustee Brad McDonald. You can go first.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Benjamin. And I'm surprised at how many parents are selecting this as an option. So that's good news that they're choosing it. I imagine there's lots of diverse reasons for it, and I'm glad there's an option for it. But I guess I concern myself, and Trustee Marchand was kind of touching around this. When we're in elementary school now, we're learning, about socialization, about all the interaction of social work amongst students. And now being on a virtual world, we lose a lot of that. And I know through my experience watching how children change from home care to kindergarten and transition to school, that there's a lot of learning that is not, I'll call it the ABCs of education. And so in addition, I just think of things like gym. I use gym, like the DPA. How are we gonna, how all these things gonna happen that are gonna be void in an online environment, or are they? So if you don't mind educating me on this, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald, and through you, Chair. Those are excellent questions. And, we have been offering virtual learning for elementary school students over the past 2 years, where we've learned a lot in terms of how to engage students in different ways, including in physical activity. And I will pass it to Principal Merwar, who I'm sure will have some great ideas to share with you in terms of what we are planning moving forward as well.
Thank you for the question. So the EBS and the foundation of the school will be built on small group instruction. And that small group instruction is built into a timetable where we have a fluid number of staff that would be in and out of the classrooms so that we can provide the social and emotional needs of students that the need. Get out there. Sorry, honey. Sorry, sweetheart. Oh, I apologize sincerely. Pardon me for that.
No, don't apologize.
I am so that's the world of living virtually. I apologize sincerely. That's my youngest. So back to the virtual school, and Jim is your question. EBS will design the school to have a very specific gym teacher going into grades 1 and 3 specifically, and it's designed for scavenger hunts and opportunity for students to virtually really engage in some really vigorous activity, a lot of health and fitness programming to ensure that students understand the need to raise their heart rate and so on and so forth, and of course meeting the needs of the curriculum. And any grade level above that, the teachers will engage in periodic physical activity throughout the day and obtain their gym marks through a very fluid opportunity where the children need breaks, and they'll notify us through their timetable when those breaks are. Physical activity will be embedded into the timetable.
Okay, sorry, I muted there. Chair, through you, I'd like to have a follow-up question. So I'm curious, and we didn't talk about it in the high school, but it's relevant there, in elementary as well. Extracurricular, you have school pageants, performances, spring concerts, etc. You have sports, events, you have trips, you have all kinds of things that happen through, I'll call it the extracurricular guise of a school. Now, when you have students that are from Caledon down to the lake, how do you manage that? Or is there that option even being involved?
Would you like me to answer?
You can, and then I'll share some other examples. Yeah.
In the amazing space that I'm in right now, I have had the pleasure to meet over 180 applicants who have shared with me their absolute want and hope to utilize their skill sets online to provide extracurricular. And anywhere from our tiny humans being in loom clubs to chess clubs to opportunities for them to play and engage with the variety of, online. There's Blook-It, for example, as an online game that really builds team within that particular resource. There is a want for it. And so the 2 nutrition breaks is where our staff would sign up for their opportunity to conduct their own extracurriculars. There are ideas right now that we are searching to see if we can manage to take the addresses of all of our students and hope that they're within a radius where we might be able to promote some engagement outside, particular field trips and opportunities in the safety of what the parents are seeking and why they may be at the school. So lots of innovation have come just from the 100 and some odd people that I've had the pleasure to meet in our interviews. And so they absolutely want extracurriculars.
Well, that's good. You mentioned one of the things I did forget, but it is part of the extracurricular learning is the field trips. I can't tell you how many children have learned about stuff that didn't realize was here. Down by me, it's the Bradley farm where they have maple syrup, in Clarkson area, or my kids go to Chudley's farm, and I went to skiing and et cetera with my kids from their elementary school. So these are all, I call it the extracurricular learning because, it's not just the ABCs that build our great community. It's also this kind of stuff. So I'm glad that you're hiring staff that understand that there's going to be a challenge, but more importantly, that is an important aspect that needs to be a part of the education system. Thank you.
If I may jump in, Chair, as well, in terms of extracurricular and the mental health and well-being, so to your questions earlier as well, that is forefront in our mind in terms of how we build community across the digital expanse. And so how we're building that community through our staff, through the teachers, through the connections with parents, and ensuring that there's regular, consistent communication with home and those check-ins is critical. Some of the other extracurricular include, and I have experienced this across, an elementary virtual school of 36,000 students across a district, is, for instance, baking clubs, where students are in their own kitchens and the teacher is baking and they have very few ingredients and putting things together and doing things of that matter, knitting clubs, book clubs, and it has nothing to do with technology. And I think that that's a very critical piece to add here. And you've mentioned visiting farms and, those kind of experiences as well. We'll be setting those up as well. It may not be with an entire class, but certainly we'll be offering those kind of opportunities, as well as through, for instance, the Digital Human Library, which you can look up online, which offers streamed experts. In my previous experience in doing this, we met with astronauts from NASA and had tours of their space in California. We went into caves and learned about the types of dwellings in those caves and, how the people lived in different parts of the world. We climbed Kilimanjaro. There's many different aspects of this kind of learning, and we will be looking to bring all of these experiences into the elementary virtual school as well to continue to expand those experiences for our students.
Trustee Lawton, your turn.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to ask a question, Chair Benjamin. One of my grandchildren is in senior kindergarten. So last year she was in junior kindergarten, and I'll tell you, DPA was a big part of the day. They dance and they sing and there's all kinds of stuff going on. But the one thing that concerned her were the number of kids in her class who didn't have manipulatives, didn't have actual physical things that they could use in whatever was being demonstrated or taught or talked about. And it was as, even though information was sent home, we all know that there's many, many homes who and families who don't have things Like one of the things was an ice cube tray. So is there some, I don't think there's an answer for that, but is there some kind of basis on which you can establish workarounds with that type of situation?
Thank you, Trustee Lawton, for that question. And through you, Chair, I'm going to ask Principal Merwar to give some examples. Yeah.
Thank you. Another amazing question. So we know that if we specifically speak of our primary students, kindergarten and grade 1, they need a lot of loose parts and opportunities to learn. And so our central locations will be available for staff to create packages with the provocations that they may be creating and picked up by families. And it would be an equal opportunity for all students. And so we would never assume that anyone has everything or anything. We would provide them with the needs that they had at home. In previous examples from my previous location, we were sending home packages everywhere from pom-poms to straws to what have you. The junior teachers then caught wind of this, and we absolutely were sending home STEAM packages. Anyone here that's a parent might know that Quickie website that sells, these wonderful packages at $60, $70. Well, we were recreating our own versions of STEM, building activities, critical thinking, and ensuring the global competencies within these small packages. And parents loved to come picking them up. It's like a little gift, and we would tie it with a bow. And so very doable and very reachable. And it's something that we anticipate to continue with the entire EBS population.
That's great, and obviously an advantage over the situation we were in before. An actual planned virtual school makes a big difference. Thank you.
Trustee Marchand, is your hand up, or I see another hand? I don't know who that is.
It's not. Might be Trustee Crocker.
Trustee Crocker, your turn.
Thank you. So my question has to do with the wait list and how it's being managed. So I'm thinking about the family who missed the deadline for whatever reason, the family that's just moved into Peel, the child who suddenly has needs or a situation which didn't exist before, is new to the family. So how big is your wait list, and how are you going to manage it? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Crocker. And through you, Chair, one of the pieces that I will share and then pass it to Principal Merwar is we have enabled quite a few students who had circumstances that we needed to consider to enroll in EVS after the deadline. And there will be another opportunity at the beginning of September when we have reorganization for parents to select the elementary virtual school, or in some cases, select to go back to a face-to-face school. In terms of the wait lists, I will pass it to Principal Merwar.
So great question. Thank you so much. We've been through this in the past, and we know that through the multiple surveys, it was proactive for us at school level to host a wait list so that we would know sooner than later. There will be another opportunity, as mentioned. And so those, my colleagues will have that list running and going, and hopefully be able to share with me sooner than the reorg date. Looks like August, and in that time we would come back to the table and see what we need to do to ensure that our families are being heard and their voices are heard for their choices. And continually right now, any vulnerable families are looked at deeply, and we ensure that we look at one family at a time.
Much appreciated.
Any more questions from the trustees? I would just like to add a comment.
Sorry,
Yes.
Chair, when you're done your comment, I do have one question.
Okay, I just want to add to what Trustee Lawton said. In January, when the Premier Doug Ford, extended the virtual learning by 1 week, I had the opportunity to sit in the virtual junior kindergarten class with my grandson. And what I observed was the teachers were doing an awesome job in keeping the kids engaged, but I had to sit with him from 8:30 in the morning till, 2:40 or to 3 o'clock. So I see that the number of junior kindergarten is the most, 273, which means the parents are making a conscious decision that they want their kids in Peel, virtual learning. But does it mean that they are also willing to set aside that time to be with their kids? Because many of the activities that the teachers were, introducing involved having the help of some adult in the home. Like, for example, I just give you an example. She said, find me something that is square in shape. And my grandson went around the house running around finding something square in shape, till finally I said, you know what, take a slice of bread that's square. But he couldn't get into the fridge, so I had to go and help him to get that slice of bread and then come and show it to the teacher and so on. So what it meant was there should be somebody to supervise the younger ones, like junior kindergarten kids. So this is just sharing with you my own experience, because it really happened, and I did enjoy being in kindergarten with him. But there are certain difficulties around helping our little ones in this virtual learning scenario. Thank you. Trustee Marsha, you're next.
Is Trustee Green.
Oh, Trustee Green. Please go ahead.
Trustee Marchand has a question as well, but go ahead, Trustee Green.
Listening to all of this and appreciate the presentation. But as Chair alluded to,
David, we can't hear you.
Okay, let me turn this thing up a little bit more. Yeah, my concern really is, and the Chair Benjamin just alluded to it, because my goddaughter, who presently is online for because of certain circumstances, she has to be online. But the thing is that happens, she will just get up. I'll be by the house and she'll get up. Okay, time for break, and she'll just leave. And her grandmother is trying to get her back. No, it's break time, and she takes her break when she wants to. She'll go back when she wants to, and then basically there's time when she'll say, "Oh, it's nap time," and she just disappearing. She's gone, and you can't get her to go back until when she feels like she wants to go back. So that piece, and I know it's not gonna be on the school. Much is more like gonna be on the family. But in terms of the accountability piece and reporting, what is the structure that is in place to deal with that piece?
Thank you for your question, Trustee Green. It's a very good question. And through you, Chair, I will ask Principal Merwa to please respond.
Thank you. I think that we have seen much of this in this past year, and we have learned that a deep sense of belonging, whether in the classroom or online, requires very explicit pedagogy, really targeted and specific engagement of students and understanding who our students are, where they see themselves, and how can we really teach to them. The foundation of this school will be built under small group instruction. And when I say that, we're looking at 5-to-1 instruction on a regular basis throughout the day with ISSP modeled to support classrooms. And we're looking at daily 5 and numeracy for an hour and all those wonderful pieces, which comes with small group instruction. And so the timetable is being built right now. I'm almost done. Really proud of that. It's taken a while, but almost done the timetable. And it does demonstrate that creative thinking outside the box to ensure that our students are engaged. I almost don't like to use the word async because it's a constantly sync day. It just depends on what the students are doing and how they have access to the teacher. And so I don't push that concept of the students are on their own. They're always accessible. The teacher should be always able to call their name. And for those tiny humans that are, they're not feeling it, that happens in our classrooms as well. And it's a matter of really provocating that opportunity to see what their interests are, why are they moving away from their screens. And that comes with our PD, with our staff. And of course, what I'm listening when I'm hiring is how do we engage those tiny minds?
Thank you for that, Chair. Just a follow up, and with that said, is now I'm just thinking outside the box. Now, for instance, a student who may be on for first period did not come back at second period, didn't show up. What is in place is the in to sure because the teacher from being there cannot tell exactly what happened, what's going on. You're not hearing from the family. So what is in place to basically either reach out or engage that family to say, okay, Johnny was on, but Johnny's not back on. What's going on? How what's a plan there? If you could break that down for me so I understand, because the reason why I'm asking, you see, my grandkids are, well, they're in person, but I have a deep rooted, not only the fact that I'm a trustee, but my kids, they have gone through Peel Board, and now my grandkids are going through Peel Board. So I have the deep rooted interest in what happened in terms of with our children.
So, my belief is that when we develop the school, it's really important that we engage our parents and that we engage that communication and a foundational partnership. In the end, our staff will have opportunities to connect with our office staff to look at, we have attendance regularly throughout the day, but it is important that we touch base with our parents and communicate, and a period should not go by when we haven't had eyes on our learners. And so that is part of our admin teams and our office team's job during the day, is to ensure that attendance is there. We follow procedures to ensure that we, connect with parents, and the staff know that they'll connect with parents. And so that will be the plan that moves forward with EVS.
Okay, all right, thank you for that.
All right, Trustee Marchand, you're next.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair. I'm truly amazed with what's been done in terms of advancing and engaging kids online. It's pretty remarkable. I'm very enheartened to hear of the 5-to-1 commitment. I have heard a lot of concerns from parents, from teachers, and from administrators about kids who've been in the early grades online over the last 2 years coming back into the classroom. Heightened bullying, heightened fights in the classroom, physical altercations in the playground and the hallways. Kids being unable to manage through a school day in the classroom because they haven't had that early adjustment, unable to play with peers and get along with peers. All those things that come with human interaction amongst the little kids, particularly amongst our more vulnerable ones, where they don't have as much parental supervision or guidance at home, where they don't have access to extracurriculars outside of the house. What is being so first part of the question is, what are we doing to track those difficulties of students who are returning from an online environment into a more typical learning environment, to fully examine the extent of this problem and the damage we've done to our kids over the past 2 years, and what are we doing to mitigate that, knowing that this is an existing problem?
Yes, thank you for that question, Trustee Marchand, and through you, Chair. We know that there's been significant learning loss for our students, and we're very cognizant with regards to how that's affected many of our students, both academically and within their mental health range. And so we are intentionally thinking about this in our planning, including through supporting with transitions. I noted a little earlier in the report, we have close to 200 transition meetings that are taking place now this month with parents, with families, to understand who our students are. That is critical. And in order for us to center the needs of our students, it's about knowing who they are. And we are taking the time through the principal, the vice principals, to do that. As well, there's a tendency right now to compare with what we know elementary virtual school was. That what was is something that's going to be very different than what it will be moving forward. We are intentionally and strategically selecting educators that are passionate that have the skills, that want to be in the elementary virtual school. So that's going to make a huge difference in terms of that connection between the teacher and the student, and of course, the teacher with the family. And that's going to be foundational to the kind of relationships that are going to be built across the students and with that teacher. And I will pass it over to Principal Meror because I know that she's been very committed to ensuring that she is aware of who the students are and putting many strategies in place to support.
Thank you. Absolutely. So our transition meetings are definitely, as Ms. Smith has established, they are really for us to understand our students and our vulnerabilities and how we can support them. Further to that, the opening procedures of our school will be deeply rooted in digital citizenship and ensuring that students from kindergarten all the way to grade 8 understands the digital citizenship platform. It's important for us to also continue to do practices like community circles and sharing our feelings. There's quite a bit of focus on the social emotional piece for our younger students who don't always understand why they feel the way that they feel. And sometimes we need to really express through teaching that sometimes their bodies are in a certain way, or we're feeling something, and those are important pieces for us to teach, and that will be part of our opening procedure in the first few weeks of school, and really checking in on students and parents. There's a constant connection with parents. We are at a benefit to have some parents, like some of you have explained, to sit very close to their children during the day, and those partnerships are essential. So that will be part of the plan to ensure that our staff know that we have supports, right, in homes. And then it's the co-constructing of our classrooms. Our staff and part of what we're listening and learning from during our interviews is that co-construction ability for staff to bring voice into the classroom where students can build their community and be part of what their classroom is going to look like virtually. The design of their page, the design of their rubrics, and so on and so forth. So those are essential parts of really building capacity with our children and giving leadership within that online platform as well.
Any more questions or comments from the trustees?
Just one follow-up, if I could, Chair.
Go ahead, please.
I appreciate that answer, and it's quite fulsome, but I'm still missing that, that unstructured social interaction, unstructured but supervised social interaction amongst young people, and I don't know how you're going to be able to effectively duplicate that through the online learning. And I think that that's part of the problem that we're experiencing in the return to in-person schooling, is that, that guided play and those guided interactions with peers, not with an adult, because we also need to be careful about not subjecting these kids to early adultification, which can come if their interaction is all with mom and with teacher. But where do you have this normal developmental interaction with their peer group, and how do you, really meaningfully get that through an online environment? And I'm just concerned that we're going to end up doing some horrible damage to some of these kids by not being able to give it to them. And I know many kids will have the resiliency and have the parents and the resources to overcome the deficits, but there will be a set of children who don't have that resiliency, and that we may be further harming them and setting them back years in this. And what are we doing to catch those ones, to identify it, and to really replace that, that playtime that comes at recess, that catching those physical skills of learning to play catch with your friend, sharing of items, and I'm just not sure how you're going to replicate that. So I'd be interested to know.
Just to add to that, that's a great question. And, this is something that we're grappling with as well in terms of how are we going to offer those kind of opportunities. And certainly, I have witnessed that there have been a lot of unstructured opportunities for students to engage, where some students who left the elementary virtual school last year said that they have never felt as close to the peers in their class as they have within the virtual classroom. And so we have a lot of counter narratives to what we're sharing right now in terms of how certain teachers crafted those kind of communities within the class where students were able to develop lasting relationship with students that not necessarily lived in their community. So they came together into a class where they didn't know each other at all and were able to establish this kind of relationship, and in turn had those opportunities to interact through unstructured time, including through mentorship of older students as well, in structured and, again, not structured, sorry, in safe ways. And so that we are thinking about this and thinking, yes, how do we kind of replicate the kind of things that we're very comfortable with in a face-to-face school within that virtual setting? And that's our challenge, right? And we're willing to look at the various options. We're doing cross-jurisdictional scans. In fact, we're meeting with other districts who are also setting up their elementary virtual school. We have a meeting set up next week to share ideas and see what we can do to keep building from this and enhance these experiences. And we're very motivated to do so, and our staff will be too. And I think that's a critical point. Our staff will be too. These are teachers who are putting up their hand, jumping up and down saying, we want this job. And Samita, how many staff did you say applied for the positions, and how many are we going to be hiring? So you can see just the ratio of this as well.
I currently, in this particular round, have 243 applicants, and forgive my number, but it was 195 or 215. I have to go back and look at my list because I'm dealing with the transition list, but it was lots. It's a lot.
A lot. So, you know, that's 1 to 2 or something of that nature, 1 to 3. And so there are many, many people that are seeking this opportunity. And so we're hopeful that with so many passionate people, creative people coming forward, that we'll continue to find different ways for our students to engage in ways that are intimate within this kind of environment. So thank you for those questions.
AD De Silva, you have a question?
Yeah, not a question, but just like to build on the question. So through you, Chair, and to Trustee Marchand's question, there's no doubt when we started thinking about elementary virtual school based on the mandate from the ministry, I don't think anyone in the group thought that virtual learning was better than in-person learning. But for a small proportion of students, they excel in this environment. And I would offer that oftentimes parents choose to do so in other ways anyway. I take, for example, homeschooling. Some parents decide to homeschool their children. So so to your question, it works for them. It may not work for everyone. But I do like the question around the socialization piece. So I offer to Bernadette, Superintendent Smith, and Principal Marwar, perhaps a conversation often and frequently with parents about reminding them to, if they can't get that interaction student to student, that we offer, if they can do that outside of the school. We can't provide all of that in that virtual environment. So reminding them about, you know, getting to the park if they can, or seeking other sources of socialization for their students through those discussions, because we understand that virtual school can't be everything for everyone at the same time, but for some, much like homeschooling, it is serving a purpose.
All right, any more questions from trustees? Any comments? Okay, so I just would like to have one more question. I don't want any explanation. Suppose a parent finds that, you know, this virtual school is not suitable for their kid. Is there any option to drop out and then go into in-person learning?
Through you, Chair. Thank you for that question. And we will be certainly looking at every case individually and looking at all the different circumstances that arise. And so just like in a regular school, if a student is not being successful in a class, we will be reviewing with the teachers, with the parents, and setting the appropriate course of action.
All right, thank you. I assume that there are no more questions. Thank you for your presentation, Superintendent Smith and Principal Merwal. The report is here for receipt. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Item 7.3 is Appeal Learning Recovery Tutoring Programs. I think AD Aujla, you have to present the report once again.
Thank you, Chair Benjamin. So I will again introduce Superintendent Rosalind Hoppy to bring forward 6.3 Peel Learning Recovery Tutoring Programs. Thank you.
Trustee Andrews, can you please put the item on the floor?
Yes, I will.
Trustee McDonald, please second the motion.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Superintendent Hoppy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Associate Director Ajla, and through you, Chair. I'd like to present the report on our Peel Learning Recovery Tutoring programs. This funding that has been provided to us by the ministry, the purpose of this was to be able to provide supports for students. All jurisdictions within the province were given funds of varying amounts to be able to create these tutoring opportunities for students in light of the challenges that were faced through the pandemic. And so the monies that were provided, they came with specific stipulations in terms of the nature of how they could be the monies could be allocated. And specifically, it was designed to hire staff to be able to provide tutoring supports for students. And this could occur before the school day, during the school day, after the school day, and on weekends. And so it was a wide open opportunity for boards to be able to engage in providing creative solutions to address the needs of students. And so what we were able to do within our board was to be able to come up with some very creative ways to be able to support the needs of students through these tutoring funds. And we were able to now initiate this through a phased approach. Some of the key tenets of the tutoring, however, needed to make sure that the tutoring was being offered in small groups, and that, again, as I mentioned, that it was before and after school on weekends. It was also able to continue into the summer. And we were also able to provide partnerships, engage in partnerships with third-party providers in terms of providing and local community organizations to provide some of these tutoring opportunities for our students. And the key to this was also being able to deliver some targeted, culturally appropriate programming for students where and when they need it, which is in perfect alignment with our goals as a board in terms of our ministry directives and making sure that identity is something that is not thought of as an after fact, but is embedded within from the very outset in terms of how we are going to be supporting our students. With that in mind, what we were able to do, the total amount that was allocated was $6.6 million, and we were now able to break up that a large sum of money into different areas to be able to, again, provide a phased approach in terms of how we're going to be able to support our students. For phase one, what we built on was making sure that we were able to build on existing structures. There was no need, as they say, to reinvent the wheel. And so what we were able to do was to leverage the support of the structures that we have in place. And the Counting on You program and the Ontario Focused Intervention Partnership, or OFIP programs, were already structures that our system, our teachers were already familiar with, and were already delivering programs to our students. And so as part of phase one, we were then able to extend those programs. And so we had an extension of COI, of Counting on You, and an extension of OFIP, and those afforded schools the opportunity to continue to do more with the structures that they already had. So if they already had a Counting on You program, they were now able to hire more staff in order to be able to meet the needs of students in this manner. Similarly, in terms of OFIP, they were able to do the same. In terms of these two particular programs, they were designed to be able to address the learning gaps of students by providing support and tutoring for students on a one-to-one, in small groups or small classes, and the ministry stipulated that they could not exceed the maximum of 15 students. Again, wanting to make sure that this was targeted in a manner that allowed the students to be able to receive as much as possible the specific supports that they would, as an individual student, would require. And one of the other pieces that it also allowed was for it to be able, as I mentioned, to happen outside of the regular time. So as an extension, we were also able to be creative where it may have only been able to have happened after school, we were able to now provide opportunities for it to happen before school based on, again, the specific location of the school and what their needs were and the needs of the students at that time. So it provided us a lot of flexibility without us having to reinvent how we were going to do so. We were able to build on these opportunities. The other piece to this was it also allowed us to be able to reach into another labor pool that we don't typically have opportunity to support in terms of providing these extracurricular opportunities, and that is to our dedicated early childhood educators and our educational assistants. They too were able to be part of receiving some of these funds in terms of providing tutoring, as well as our behavioral education assistants. And again, typically they don't have many opportunities, but through this extension and others, as I'm going to be explaining, this was now another way in which they too could also bring their professional knowledge and expertise to bear to support students in a variety of settings without having to go beyond, again, the confines of their own school. They were able to work within those parameters and provide supports, again, at the different ways and the different intervals, before school, during the day, and after school, to be able to do so. Another program that we worked with, we partnered with Toronto Metropolitan University, formerly known as Ryerson. They had a study buddy program. And so we were in partnership with them to be able to, and I quote, provide critical support to parents struggling to balance the responsibilities of work with ongoing disruptions to their children's learning. And so by partnering with them, we were able to bring these students that attended Toronto Metropolitan University, bring them to Peel and work with our students directly. This was done within two specific areas, the Lincoln Alexander Secondary School, Families of Schools, as well as the Bramalea Secondary School, Families of Schools. And it was a successful endeavor that is still ongoing, in which, again, there was a hiring that was done. So again, interested students from Toronto Metropolitan University sent their application. They were vetted, they were interviewed, and they were brought on board, and then paired with students to be able to provide, again, that one-to-one support to be able to meet those individual students' tutoring needs. And so the staff within these families of schools were able to identify students with whom this would be meeting the criteria, with whom this would be a benefit to, and we were able to pair them up, and we had found great success with that study buddy program, and it's continuing as we speak right now. One of the key pieces to understand as we were developing these programs as part of phase number one was that the monies that were given to us, $6.6 million, is a substantial amount of money to be able to use. And our challenge were many in terms of the time to be able to administer to create these programs, and then to be able to administer them in a manner that was going to, again, make sure that we were able to serve all of the students within Peel and provide them these opportunities. And so what I'm sharing with you now as part of the phase one report is the engagement reports. The transfer payment agreement had a requirement that we provide feedback to the ministry on a weekly basis in terms of the number of students that are being engaged through the monies that were being provided. And so in the report, what you see is that things started out slowly. We had to start, the monies had a start date of April in terms of when all programs based on the TPA had to start by. And so once we got going, you'll see things were a bit slow to get going. But by the end of May, we were able to support a significant number of students. We were able to have 2,255 elementary students that week alone, from May 9th to May 13th, that were able to receive supports, and 460 secondary students. And then it jumped again to the May 16th to 21st to 2,535 students in the elementary panel, and then 436 students in the secondary panel. And so this significant increase is continuing today. Those numbers have not fallen off. Those remain where we are right now in terms of those offerings, in terms of the overall supports. And those were just from phase one alone, which was quite substantive and quite impressive. In phase 2, one of the things that we did was to put the opportunity back in the hands of the schools in terms of them knowing what they need. As much as we use the existing instruction of counting on you and OFIP, we also knew that there were many different ways that teachers and educators were already supporting students. And so this would now provide an opportunity to provide funding to be able to go deeper and be more robust in terms of how they were going to be able to resource this opportunity to support more students within their schools. And so we created a structure that was sent out to all of this, to all schools from K to 12, to be able to now say any program that you have that meets the requirements of literacy and numeracy skill development, we would now, you submit that to us, and we would be able to take a look at it and make sure that it meets the particular threshold of the transfer payment agreement of these funds, and we would now be able to fund that. Some of the ideas that we had suggested to and also received interest from were supporting students in the areas, again, of literacy and numeracy, creative writing, physical education, the arts curriculum, math skills, science skills, social science supports in any subject area, because once again, literacy and numeracy is embedded in all of those different areas, and therefore allowed us to be able to utilize the funds accordingly. And the same thing applies in secondary, where any course, it didn't only have to be math and or science, but any course that does touch on the foundational skills and expanding on the skills necessary in the areas of math, literacy and numeracy, we were able to now provide, again, opportunity for schools to submit their different projects. So at this point, we've had a number of projects that have been submitted to us, and we have started to vet some of those projects and turn them around, because again, the school year is coming to a close quite quickly, and so the opportunity to capitalize on this is narrowing. But we were able to turn around and provide opportunity for a number of projects, and some of those same projects also extended into the summer, and we were able to provide opportunity for localized supports. Some students were not going to sign up for summer school, they were not going to necessarily also use Camp I Can, but again, here's an opportunity, smaller group session, working with the teacher that's at the school, working with a handful of students, and we were able to provide opportunities in that manner that they otherwise would not have been able to see. Also within this phase 2, we also were allowed to provide opportunities for schools to hire a tutor, again, who's somebody who would be able to come in and provide supports to the students, and the type of students that they were able to draw in this case were quite wide. They needed to be, they could be OCT qualified teachers, including occasional teachers. They could be casual educational assistants, or they could be early childhood educators, and they could also be post-secondary students. And so again, this provided us a wide net that we could cast to be able to bring supports into supporting our students in the schools and where they are. And so this avenue during phase number 2 allowed us to be able to go beyond the schools, go beyond Peel, to be able to bring others in who may not have had that opportunity, and we were able to find some success there in terms of bringing others into the fold as being able to provide those supports for students through the funds that were provided. Part of this phase is something that we're also very proud of. We were able to work with a very powerful team of educators centrally, who were able to create our virtual tutoring call center. And so this virtual tutoring call center is up and running as we speak. It launched on June 1st, and it is something that we are able to provide one-to-one virtual tutoring for students from grades 3 to 12. And they're able to access tutors in a variety of different subject areas, and they're able to get support with questions, again, looking at literacy and numeracy built within all the different questions that they have, because again, that's the foundational piece, and get the supports necessary to be able to help them in a 15 to 20 minute time block with one-to-one support. This call center, we were able to hire, again, Peel staff to be able to support that, and it was available Monday through Saturday from 5 to 9, Monday to Friday from 5 to 9, and on Saturdays and Sundays from 11 to 3 are the operational hours of our call center. And so we've had great success. Things started out slowly as the word was spreading, but we've now started to see an increase in terms of the number of students that are accessing, because the word is spreading. And so we're very happy and very proud of that. This virtual call center will also have a second phase to it, specific, in which we recognize that there needs to be some support for our K-2 learners as well. And so families will be able to engage in literacy reinforcement in this environment, where the families will be able to engage in a drop-in read aloud session, where students are going to be able to come on board, hear different stories being read to them, and develop skills that way. And parents will be able to sign their children up accordingly and sit with them and learn with them, and again engaging in activities in this read aloud environment. And so that will be rolled out in the second phase of our virtual call center. As I mentioned before, the other way that the monies have to be presented, to be utilized, is through third-party providers. And so what we wanted to do was to make sure that we established criteria by which we were now going to be able to reach out to our community partners that exist within Peel and beyond, but who are still able to service Peel students, and be able to provide them an opportunity to be able to support our students. And so we are wrapping up our bidding process. We put forth, we had advertised on the board website. We use media platforms to let other community organizations and other companies know that this opportunity was available. They submitted their application, and we've gone through. We've now vetted, and we're in the process of awarding those successful companies who are now going to become vendors to be able to now provide tutoring supports. What will happen in this instance is that once that process has been completed, the names of the successful companies will be posted on our website for all families to be able to go and select to get an overview of this tutoring company that has been selected. They will then complete an application to let us know that they are going to pursue tutoring supports and tutoring services through this particular company. We will then send them an individualized code for tracking purposes, and then the companies will use that code in order to now submit billing back to the school, back to the board, where we will now pay for their tutoring services. And so that way we ensure that there's accountability in terms of them not just making something up to say, oh yeah, we took care of X number of students, but no, we actually know who the students are, and we're able to track things accordingly. But we also work in partnership with our community providers, and once again meet the needs of our students. And this is going to take place during the balance of the school year and into the summer as well, providing these third-party tutoring supports. Phase 3 is going to now see us engaging in summer programs. And specifically what we were able to do is hire summer school teacher monitors. And these teacher monitors are going to be able to support all of our students with special education needs who are enrolled in summer school programs, and thereby lowering the teacher to student ratio to increase the likelihood of success for these students so that they're able to get the necessary supports while they're engaged in these summer school programs. This program started last year, and we were able to utilize these funds to be able to build on and expand on those offerings of teachers who are going to be able to provide supports for our students. Another program that we're going to be offering this summer is an outdoor educational tutoring session at our field centers, where we'll have a couple opportunities throughout the summer for families to be able to attend our Jack Smythe and Finlayson and other local community parks, again, to further literacy and numeracy skills, but using the outdoor environment as a teacher. And so again, this is going to be open to all students from K through to 12 to be able to engage in outdoor educational opportunities in terms of developing literacy and numeracy skills. So what you would see for somebody who may be in kindergarten is, oh, how many acorns do you see on the ground? And the children will be able to do some numeracy there. Meanwhile, somebody who might be in grade 12 might be asked to take a look at the environment and looking at calculating the water flow, if they know the certain parameters around what they're now being able to see there. So again, using the outdoor environment as a teacher, developing those literacy and those numeracy skills, but using the environment as a teacher and using our facilities and engaging in what we know is very powerful ways of learning through nature and being able to capitalize on that. And then the other opportunity that we're going to be able to do is to hire our own secondary students and teachers to provide small group and individual tutoring supports for students through our Camp SAIL, standing for Summer Adventures in Learning. And so this is a program that we've run for a couple of years now. And here too, we're able to build on and expand these offerings and be able to provide more teachers and provide greater opportunity for students in this regard. And so this is a summary of the different ways that we are utilizing our funds that have been given to us, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Oh, that's a lot. Superintendent Hoppy, great, awesome presentation. Any questions from our trustees? I see Trustee McDonald. You have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I just comment, and the last item you brought up is Camp Sale. I am really glad it's coming back to Garthwood. I know it was there 3 years ago, and I tried really hard to bring it back after it was canceled because it was such a success. The need for the community, I remember the lead teacher, she'd done the program up in your ward, Trustee Benjamin, and came down and didn't realize that the need was in the community down here in the south west of Mississauga, and it really was a great experience for the kids, and really really glad to see it back. So I'm just putting kudos. Thanks for getting me on the list at Garthwood. Thank you.
Any more questions from the trustees? Yes, I see one hand up. Please go ahead. Who's that? Whose hand was up? I can't.
I think it may have been a residual. It was Trustee McDonald.
Yeah, okay, all right. Seeing none, thank you for your presentation, Superintendent Hoppy. The report is here for receipt. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you, carried. Item 7.4 is the Community Engagement Framework Policy and Procedures Report. A.D. Ojla, please present the report.
Thank you so much, Chair Benjamin. I would like to introduce Superintendent Yanette Day to please share the report.
Trustee Marchand, could you please put this item on the floor?
Thank you, A.D. Ajala, and good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chairwoman Benjamin. I'd like to provide a board report for the purpose of information sharing on a deliverable of Directive 10, a community outreach and engagement plan to rebuild and maintain trust and credibility with the board community, particularly the Black communities in the Peel region. The strategic alignment of this report are but not limited to Directive 9, Directive 14, Directive 16, Policy 51, Policy 54. And some highlights of this board report are the delivering on the actions required in Ministry Directive 10 is a draft community engagement framework, policy, and procedures that has been developed through the Equity Office. Community engagement framework, policy, and procedures is intended to provide a framework that will establish how the PDSB engages with internal and external stakeholders, rebuilds and maintains trust and credibility with the Peel community, and has a clear and measurable outcomes. Currently drafted by PDSB staff and consultants, a community engagement framework will be implemented to receive meaningful input from the community and PDSB stakeholders to inform key components of the framework, policy, and procedures. The Equity Office, which was established in 2021, has 2 system superintendents of equity, and the department for which I'm responsible continues to expand with a recent hire of a senior equity lead. The PDSB has heard from many communities that they want meaningful engagement, and this is sometimes conflated with the word consulting, but we want meaningful engagement and have the board demonstrate action on what they have, what we've heard from the community. The Equity Department on the community side will continue to ensure that meaningful engagement also fosters institutional agency and ensures empowerment of the community, particularly the Black and Indigenous communities. The Black community has a phrase that they like to say, nothing about us, without us. It's clear from the ministry review that the communities that have experienced the most harm is the African, Afro-Caribbean, Black, and Indigenous communities. So the voices of those communities must be centered in this process. A consultation framework will be drafted this summer. We will identify specific community groups taking on some of the journey from lessons learned to the consultation strategy used for the anti-racism policy. During that consultation process, the Black communities and those in that community that reflect intersecting identities from LGBTQ plus to IA faith groups, all must include student voice. And so as we go through that process, documentation of the community's feedback on how well schools demonstrate the principles of equity, anti-racism, anti-oppression that lead to wellness and achievement for the Black and African Caribbean students. Thank you, and that is the end of my report. I'm happy to take any questions at this time.
Any questions or comments from our trustees?
Yeah, yes, Chair. Can I ask I seem to ask a question at every.
Please go ahead,
place.
Trustee McDonald.
Yes, so I'm trying to refresh myself on you talked about Directive 10 is what you're focused on, you know, Superintendent Day.
Yes, it's in Directive 10, the Equity Accountability Office, and you know, the hiring of a superintendent. And further in that directives talks about a community engagement plan.
Right. So, you know, we just heard a delegation today, which you were part of, and I heard you mention a lot about Black and Indigenous, but I didn't hear, you know, especially when I had my feedback for the various policies that I gave, that we need to focus on all the various needs and everyone be reflected in this equity department. And obviously in Directive 10 is to have a department that's supportive of all groups. And we heard as I said, the delegation around the Jewish community and how they feel that, you know, the hurt and harm and not being represented. So, and then you bring up the community engagement in this piece. So I'm really not seeing the connection to all the community and focus to make sure that the smallest minorities are supported by the department.
Yes, thank you for your question, Trustee McDonald, and through you, Chair. That raises a very interesting point. And so part of what this engagement framework will do is take a look at what we were able to achieve through the anti-racism policy and the lessons learned and the consultation strategy used in that framework. We're excited to be able to consult with a variety of communities. And I think for the purpose of answering Directive 10 and delivering on the ministry requirement, it was to focus on our marginalized communities, particularly Black and Indigenous, but that is not to the exclusion of all other groups who have experienced historical hurt and harm. And so our Jewish community is part of that consultation group that will be you know, consulted with as we develop a framework for meaningful engagement.
Thank you.
Adi Ojla, any more questions, Trustee McDonald?
No,
okay.
Thank you for your response.
We have Adi Ojla waiting. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Through you, Chair Benjamin. Thank you so much, Superintendent Day, for articulating that answer. Trustee McDonald, I just wanted to elaborate just a little bit further and share that you know, the board's central focus around really prioritizing the work of disrupting and dismantling systemic anti-Black and anti-Indigenous racism, of course, is connected to our directives and of course is the work of the board. We are also creating very intentional work in connection and conversations to the intersections around various identity groups and looking and really targeting and understanding the marginalization that is experienced by other identity groups within the organization as well, within the larger region of Peel. So I think today's delegation was a great example of really leaning in and listening to the voices of community that are, pointing out to us where we need to continue to lean in and create structures, work, and repair to ensure the safety, well-being of all students within our system. So thank you so much for that question, Trustee McDonald.
Yeah, and thank you. About 3 years ago, I got involved with the faith community group that, the board had. And then also, Mississauga City has a faith group. And that's where I actually met many faith leaders, including the rabbi at an event. And, I think, that was one, those two ways were engagement for the Peel. The school board kind of faith group, as well as the intersection of the Mississauga one, and I think it's important that we build those relationships, and because that is the best way to get input from them, to be connected, and to allow everyone to be heard. Because I think the biggest thing we've heard from everyone is they don't feel they have a voice or are not being heard, and this communication plan you're working on has to allow people to feel that their voices are heard. That's the first step. After we hear them, that's what we do with it. That's the next step. But the first thing is to start listening. Thank you.
Trustee Lawton, you have a question?
Thank you, Chair Benjamin, again for letting me ask a question. Superintendent, you said this is a staff and community committee, and I understand the staff part. We are also aware the trustees remain under supervision. Is there any representation from trustees, as we are community members as well? So from trustees, from PIC, from SEAC, can you just give us an idea of what the community part of the committee consists of, or who, I don't mean what, who the community part consists of?
Thank you for your question, Trustee Lawton, and through you, Chair Benjamin. You kind of answered part of that question in the answer in your question. So we will look at PIC organization. We will look at some employee resource groups, as well as our known community members, members of the Alliance, etc. So we have broad branches of community reach right now that we'll tap into as a part of our development of the consultation framework. And as I said, we'll take a lot of the learning from the anti-racism policy, and that consultation framework was very, very effective. And in seeing the delegation earlier this evening, it's allowed me to develop relationships with other community members that are a part of the work that I do in terms of creating a community roundtable and engaging consultants who are working with the board to develop a better understanding of community needs, and for the board to be better responsive to the needs of our faith group and our community leaders. So it's, yes, definitely those are some of the places we'll look to engage more community voices, but we want to come up with a very robust framework and taking our lead from the anti-racism policy, because we've established some good partnerships through that consultation process that began in 2021.
Thank you very much. You did mention the Alliance. I'm not a Star Trek person, but that's not what you meant, right?
No. No.
Thank you.
No.
Any more comments or questions? I'd just like to add to what Trustee McDonald and Trustee Lawton mentioned about communication. Communication is a key. I was also, I attended maybe 2 meetings of the Interfaith Council, and that's a great organization because through one organization, you can meet faith leaders and communicate with faith leaders across the Peel region. And, that's a great, and in addition to all the other groups. So it's not merely enough to send out, but you should also be able to have this two-way communication. So, we understand what we want, and we also understand what other faith groups or other community groups, would like to communicate. So that's just my addition to the comments.
Yes,
More?
absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
And that's why I think it's important for those communities to have the opportunity for institutional agency, for them to feel empowered so that we're not taking, but that we develop a reciprocal relationship so that what we take, we also give back to them.
Any more questions from our trustees? Thank you for your presentation, Superintendent Day. The report is here for receipt. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. 7.5, item 7.5 is Equity Department Structural Revisioning Report. I request AD Aujla to present the report.
Thank you so much. Through you, Chair Benjamin, I will ask Superintendent Donna Ford to please present the report.
Trustee Andrews, can you please put the item on the floor?
Yes, I can.
And Trustee McDonald, can you second the motion?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. And here you have the floor, Superintendent Ford.
Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Thank you, AD Ajla, and through you, Chair Benjamin. This report provides an overview of the development of the Equity Department since its inception as a result of the amalgamation of the Climate and Equity teams as per Directive 10 of the Ministry of Education Review of the Peel District School Board. This directive, Directive 10, among many items, required the formation of what was then referred to as the Equity Office. I would like to draw your attention to the slide, which I hope will be shared momentarily, which displays a conceptual design of the department as a result of the system reorganization in December 2021. And I'm going to move from top to bottom and then from right to left, if with your okay, just so that you're able to follow. And thank you for providing the zoom in. So the department is supervised by the Associate Director of School Improvement and Equity, Curriculum and Instruction, Student and Community, and School Engagement. Right now, in the acting role, AD Ajla is helping us out with that fantastic support. The department is now branched off into, I guess, two branches or two units. So one department, two components. One that focuses on, and I'm going to start on the right side, that which pertains to school and student engagement, looking at opportunities to build equity understanding, Indigenous education understanding, and equity would also include anti-racism, anti-oppression as foundational principles and or frameworks that guide what is happening, guides the work of the department, as well as the support from the department centrally to schools. On the other side, we have the community side, which is now, as you have just heard from my colleague, Superintendent Day, focus on community leadership, partnership, and engagement. The band or the bar underneath the blocks that identify the two superintendents that are supervising the branches within the department represents school and community, and the ring in the center is really about what we're trying to enact and enable the mutuality with community and school. We cannot I think, successfully dismantle systemic anti-Black racism, systemic anti-Indigenous racism, and all of the other systemic oppressions without turning to, hearing from, working with, and learning from community. So the idea was that we would be modeling how those two aspects are plugged in and move and grow forward together. Returning now to the right side of the chart, you will see that there are three teams that sort of fall under the school side. The equity team, the Indigenous Ed team, and the Black Student Success team are all to be staffed with a coordinating principal, an instructional coordinator, and resource teachers to support the work in both particular or specific, community-specific ways, as well as A.D. Adjla referenced, acknowledging the intersectionality of identities, right? So we may, of course, be focused on augmenting the improvement and well-being of the school experiences of our Black students. At the same time, we know that there are Black students who have a creed practice that is Muslim and may identify as queer. So we want to be able to be responsive to and to affirm all those aspects of their identity. And to ensure, as you were saying earlier, Trustee McDonald, that they can claim that there's a full sense of belonging and inclusion in their school spaces and classroom spaces as well. I wanted to draw your attention now to the bar or the block in the center beneath the Black Student Success Team. We also have connected to that the Center for Black Excellence for Black, African, and Afro-Caribbean students success. That is a part of the Black Student Strategy that is being championed by all of us, but primarily through the work of Superintendent Day at this time with the Black Student Success Team. And so there are steps that are being taken at this time in collaboration with the members of the Black advisory community to identify, what that center is about, what its commitments and foci are, and I think more pragmatically where the site, the center will reside, as it's physically where it will be located. So there have been some strides made in that respect. As we shift over to the left-hand side of the chart, this is where I think the uniqueness of Peel District School Board's Equity Department lies in that we actually have built out specific teams that deal particularly with communities to, I think, revisit, revitalize, and revise that which we understand to be or wish to be community engagement, leadership, and partnership. So Superintendent Day already referenced members of her team through the senior equity lead. We also have that the welcome centers are a part of the community branch of the department. So that is our more recent infrastructure that we're continuing to build out. So there's a sign there that says, or a call out box that sort of says draft. I don't know that it's so much draft or a conception. We're really looking to make this happen by continuing to staff through a number of business cases that you have recently reviewed. And what else did I want to mention about that? I think that is about it. We're about making this a reality. Thanks for sharing that slide. So in terms of next steps, what I would say to you is that the department is in early stages of developing a department mission and for sure mandate through a visioning process. And I just wanted to say that with respect to the process, that really at the heart of the work of the department and the teams within is already a purpose that we're kind of living out. And it's really to support schools as they transform, as we support in the transformation of learning environments and spaces that sustain, equitable and inclusive environments. I think we've become accustomed to the language. We're really wanting to see how the language bears itself out and where students are telling us, feeding back to us that this is really the experience that they're having. And the development of resilient students who are active, engaged, and really taking up their learning in the way that they need to, or letting us know when and where and in what ways they need support. The other aspect of the department is to continue in ongoing ways to operate cross-functionally, right? So we need to be working with our central department partners so that those sort of, the theory, those conceptual ideas and principles under the umbrella of equity bear themselves out in research and innovation, bear themselves out in curriculum, bear themselves out in the way in which we are, disciplining and offering guidance to our students so that they are in our schools, they stay in our schools, and again, they can attest to the sense of well-being. In the meantime, though, the purpose of the visioning exercise is to enhance the focus for the department, to continue to create coherence, and also clarity within and outside of the PDSB to our system and our community stakeholders regarding our commitments and the function of the department. And future tense, we're looking to create a kind of an unveiling of the department. So all of the particulars that I've shared with you tonight are offered, and that you have there's a sense of the personnel and who to reach out to when support is needed. You'll also notice in your report, there's a slightly different iteration of the organizational chart, which identifies the names of personnel as they are currently in that department, and that of course may be subject to change. And that completes my offering of the report. Happy to take any questions.
Yes, I see Trustee McDonald has his hand up. Please go ahead, Trustee McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. So, I'll echo my comments from the last, presentation by Superintendent Day. When I gave my feedback around the safe and caring schools policy and human rights policy, that I felt that the policy must have the ability that everyone sees themselves reflected in it. And so when a parent or a student call, a trustee or a teacher or throughout the various interactions that can have, that they feel that they're going to be heard, type of stuff. So I'm looking at this org chart, and I don't feel that, when let's say a parent calls, I don't feel I'm being heard. I don't feel the equity, I have, this delegation today, and I go, but I don't see where I can push them to say, hey, this is the group, or this is, if it's a, community member, or if it's a teaching moment, or it's something, a success. I don't see that there. So am I missing something? Is it more in this that needs to be fleshed out that allow that kind of ability, so we know that there are, people, all kinds of different cultures, religion, et cetera, and protected grounds, et cetera, have the ability to say that the equity department is there for me.
All right, thank you so much for your question, Trustee McDonald. And, the first two words I want to say is you bet, and hearing what you're saying. First of all, human rights in terms of the code is the floor for all team members in the equity department. And while we are, as A.D. Ajala stated earlier, unapologetic in our commitment to dismantle systemic anti-Black racism and anti-Indigenous racism, there is an and, right? And the and is how, we're addressing those systems of oppression that have particular impact on particular groups that we would say are quote unquote marginalized by, practices and so on and so forth. And so how we are going to bear that out in tangible ways is, quite frankly, through hiring. We are looking forward to and have earmarked that there would be additional team members brought on who carry, what we would reference as identity-specific lived experiences in the role of an RT, in the role of staff, team members on the community side, so that in our response to the delegation that, as has stated, as a Jewish community, we're looking to see specific ways in which we can know that the system is seeing us. They would be able to call up, or we would take that up and point to, here are staff with lived experience within the Jewish community who can be responsive, who can, take up those particular and even nuanced aspects of your experience and bring them forward to the team, where we engage in problem solving, connecting with our central departments and looking, for example, to understand what is the issue, what has occurred at the school, in what ways might the curriculum, the school learning environment, the culture turn towards the claim that there is something missing here. And we can't do that without our central department partners that bring knowledge of, for example, empowering modern learners. That also speaks to ensuring that our students are seen, included, and actively engaged in their learning.
Any other questions or comments?
Thank you for your response. Appreciate it.
I see Trustee Lawton has her hand up. Go ahead, Trustee Lawton.
I knew I was muted this time. Yeah. Superintendent Ford, did I hear you say that the Center for Black Excellence is going to be or is a physical space? And can you just explain that a bit?
Sure. Through you, Trustee Benjamin. So this is what I know, and I might reach out to my colleague, Superintendent Day, who is really championing that. So we are within the department, yes, to be looking to create or ensure that the Center for Excellence is a location, bricks and mortar, that will house a variety of opportunities for engagements that not only speaks to the particular experience of our African Caribbean and Black students, but it's a resource space. It's a community hub. It seeks in I think many ways to materialize what was seen or visioned in the organizational chart. And Superintendent Day is working with Black Community Advisory Committee members right now, along with PDSB staff, to identify a site. I don't know if I've left anything out that you would care to add, Superintendent Day.
No, I think that it's in its infancy right now. So, sorry, it's in its infancy right now. The center is just really being co-constructed with PDSB staff and community members. We're looking at 2 locations right now as physical sites, one being Turner Fenton and the other being Morningstar Middle School. So right now it's just in its infancy. We've got a long way to go to develop the actual mission and vision of the center. We have 2 proposals, one from community, one from a consultant, that we're looking now to meld together and identify some commonalities so that we can craft what will be the mandate of the center.
Great, thank you very much. to both of you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you for the presentation, Superintendent Ford. The report is here for receipt. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. Item number 8 is trustee motions from previous meetings. I see there's nothing for item 8, so we move on to the next item, that is number 9, notices of motions and petitions. Are there any notices of motions and petitions from any of our trustees? I see there's none, so I move on to the next item on the agenda, which was added with your approval, and that is name of the committee. Item number 10, name of the committee. Superintendent Hoppy, I think you have something to say on this.
I do. Thank you, Chair, and through you. As we know, the Central Board Office has gone through different iterations and different changes over the past recent years. And so this particular committee, its name is reflective of a structure that wasn't there, that no longer exists. So the student learning portion of the name of the current committee title, Student Learning, Wellbeing, and Equity Committee, we are looking to offer a change to Curriculum, Equity, and Student Wellbeing Committee. And so that is something that we feel would be more reflective of the current structures of some of you just saw my colleague present to you in terms of some of the different changes that are happening. And so we are looking to make the name of this committee more reflective of those of us who on the staff side are bringing forward the different matters that are being presented through this committee.
Any questions or comments from our trustees?
Yeah,
yes.
I have a
Trustee
question.
McDonald, please go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Chair. So you're wanting to change the name, and so you're asking the trustees to vote on the name. So, you know, I'm a visual learner, so I like to have it written down. So could you repeat the name again?
Understandably, not a problem. Yes. So through you, Chair, the name that we are proposing is Curriculum, Equity, and Student Wellbeing Committee.
And so does that, you know, so I don't think the committee has a, what do you call it, a charter or a mission or a vision statement or anything of that nature, does it?
Through you, Chair, no. At this time, no. There is no such thing, no.
So, but this is, you know, this is the three titles you got in the name curriculum. So it's like the previous IPC, you know, functionality, equity, which is an important aspect and which we're talking about a lot on the directives, and it's great. And then well-being. So that means mental health, I would assume comes into that, you know, just so I understand.
That you are absolutely correct. Thank you for the clarification. You're absolutely correct. One of the pieces that for the distinction to help clarify, the Student Learning Support Services Department was both the special education as well as the curriculum arms that were combined at one point. In our new iteration, as how we stand right now, curriculum is separate from that, as is special education. Now, you'll notice that there is not special education mentioned in the title, and that's because you already have a committee by the SEAC, the Special Education Advisory Committee, to which all of those particular matters relating to special education have the opportunity to be discussed and brought forward and shared through that avenue. And so we were very intentional in terms of, although that department is both one student special education and well-being combined in one title. Excuse me, sorry about that. We are looking to provide that clarity around who and is going to be bringing forward the various ideas and motions for consideration here in this committee.
And I thank you so much, Superintendent Hoppy, and you know, I through you, Chair, again. I appreciate that, and I think it goes to, you know, I see Catherine, you just popped on camera, and I think you probably are wanting to address. Maybe we do need, because this is a public committee, it would be nice to have that great explanation in some words you know, that I think people would understand it, even though I think the title you have is pretty descriptive and I think is much better than what we had before IPC. So, and also we made comments as trustees, I think it was just yesterday, time flies by, about the separation of SEAC. I really think that was a great structural move, and especially for SEAC, because I think the special education department and the community really appreciate the focus that way. Anyway, thank you so much for the comments.
I see we have another hand up, and that is General Counsel and Governance Officer Lockyer. Please say what you have to say. We are eager to hear your comments.
Thank you very much. And through you, Chair Benjamin, the actual committee does have a governance directive that is part of the bylaws, the procedure bylaws that were passed in 2021. So the reason for raising it today was to get the input and the feedback from the committee to see if they would recommend through these minutes to the board to consider changing the names. Also, we're in the process, and at the Governance and Policy Committee next week, we'll be reviewing the revisions to the bylaws. And if those revisions are satisfactory to that committee, then they will go to the board not until September, because there's a requirement in the procedures to make sure that the public has some good knowledge and notice about changes to anything that we're doing with the bylaws. So those would come forth in September. If those are satisfactory to the board, then we would be reviewing all of the directives that are associated with the bylaws, and we would be updating them. With the recommendation from this board, when we update those directives, we would change the name. It would be a public process at that time to show the change in the name. I know it sounds like quite a bit of a process, but to your point, Trustee McDonald, it is to make sure that there's good public awareness about it, but at the same time, there's that connection back to the staff and the work being done at the board. So this recommendation would be in the form of a motion recommending to the board, who could approve it through the minutes, and it'll show up in the directives in September.
Thank you. Any more questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Superintendent Hoppy. The name change is here for receipt. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor? Thank you. It's carried.
Do you need a motion? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. Do we have to put it a motion? Okay.
Yes.
Can I ask Trustee Lawton to put the item on the floor for a motion? No. She's not a member. Trustee McDonald,
I'll
can
put it on the
do
floor.
honors.
Absolutely.
The honors. I see Trustee Robert Crocker has his hand up. Do you have anything to say, Trustee Crocker?
I just have a question. I haven't heard about terms of reference. So the old IPC would have had terms of reference, as all our committees do. Will we not have terms of reference for this new committee? And should the board not pass those?
Okay, who's going to give the answer to that? Ms. Lockyer, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. They're, instead of terms of reference, they're called governance directives, and the board, they were passed in 2021. Those are the governance directives that I was talking about amending after the procedure bylaws, which of course would be have to be approved by the trustees. You're quite right. But they're just called governance directives instead of terms of reference.
So for clarity, will we not have terms of reference for any committees going forward?
They're called governance directives now. If we want to change the name, if the trustees would like to change the name back to terms of reference, that's fine as well. The past bylaw right now calls them governance directives, but they are in essence terms of reference.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the clarification.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions? So
did you?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Did you ask for a vote on the motion, Chair?
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Yeah, thank you.
So can we have a vote on this motion by trustees?
Yay.
All in favor?
Yay.
Carried. Thank you very much. Item number 11 is adjournment. I would like Trustee Andrews to put the motion on the floor. Can we have a seconder, please?
I'll second it.
Carried. Thank you to everybody who attended this first meeting of the Curriculum Equity and Student Wellbeing. Hopefully, we're going to have the name change, and please enjoy the rest of the evening. Thank you very much. Good night.